when I kind of look back, and I don't want to bemoan the pandemic because we just want to put that in the rearview mirror,
Hmm.
but there's no question that automation played a key role with, people having to work remotely, including IT professionals as well. But as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, a lot of solutions fall short; they're not complete. But I'm wondering, as you sort of look forward, how do you envision network automation, evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's two kind of common trends going on. I think one is, this term intent-based networking. It's not necessarily a new term, but I think we're still on the cusp of it rolling out and actually being consumed. And there's no real magic here, right? When we talk about intent-based networking, all we're talking about is some kind of closed loop automation
Yeah.
where you're setting something and you're going to validate that it stays set. What I think the trend is that we're seeing a lot of abstraction on top of that intent. So we're trying to kind of formulate the input into the system as being as close to the actual business logic, what you're actually trying to do as possible, because at the end of the day, there's a human interacting with that interface. And kind of the magic happens where we translate that input into some underlying configuration and distribute it and then monitor it using our streaming telemetry. So
Yeah.
I think that trend will continue, will continue to grow. I think the other trend is around more and more of what happens after the network has been deployed. So, after you've powered up the boxes and after you've pushed initial configuration, more of those interactions being driven by kind of the surrounding ecosystem. So, I think a big part of that is, our networks, especially in the data center, are more often than not supporting some kind of compute stack, whether it be Kubernetes or OpenStack, if you still have that around, or maybe
Yeah.
some VMware. And a lot of the change going into the network is being driven by those surrounding compute stacks. And I need to attach a VLAN here, or I'm bringing up a new rack of a new compute cluster. So I need to stitch all the storage and infra services and things like that. So I think kind of this machine to machine interaction where, the interface to the network is no longer necessarily through kind of the fabric controller or the network controller. You're actually consuming the network as part of the workloads that you're provisioning around the network on those surrounding compute stacks. So
Right.
those two trends definitely, I think, are almost at the point they're hitting kind of exponential growth, if you want to call it that. The last I will say is there's this whole concept of kind of self-healing, self-driving networks. Um, the whole idea here being that as a network controller, there's a degree of visibility you have, that a degree of correlation that you can make that a human necessarily can't make in the same degree of time. So we want to get into a state where we can really kind of put our networks into autopilot, and this can be simple things like maybe you're seeing packet loss on one of your spines in the data center, and the system's smart enough to know that, okay, there's 3 other spines there and you have redundancy and no links are down. So maybe I'm just going to drain traffic from that spine and allow someone to come in and debug it at a later date. Things like that, like simple optimizations that just mitigate traffic loss and, kind of flag for a user to come in later. I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forwards.